In this tutorial, we're going to complete a detailed drawing of the front rail. To start our part drawing, we need to be back in our design space here, and we're going to be drawing the front rail. It's one of the most complicated components in the project. But before we do, we just need to select it up here in bodies, right click on it, and turn it into a component. We can't create drawings from bodies. So you'll see it appear down here. Right click on it again, create drawing. Then this menu will come up. Now we're not using the automatic drawing function. It is pretty good. So sometimes, particularly on more complicated drawings, it can be good to even use it and then modify it as necessary. However, we're not using it for this set of tutorials. Now in terms of the drawing, we don't want to create new, we want to add it to our Fusion tutorial drawing sheet that we started in the last tutorial. And as a result, it's automatically changed it over to A3. We want to create a new sheet, and that's all our settings. Now you may get this warning here, and it just means that we've changed something in our design space from the last time we were working on our drawing. So normally it will just give you this warning and then it will update itself. But then also you can see up here this little icon, and if that appears, there's a version mismatch, and often just by clicking on that, it updates it and fixes everything. So we'll just press OK. So here's our blank sheet with our title block there already. And we want to place our base view. Now base view, because it's a front view, it needs to be down here in the sort of the bottom left quadrant of the page. But also, if you've made a mistake or haven't followed along all the way back in tutorial 1 and you have a different orientation, so for example, the view that you're seeing of your rail is different to what you can see on the screen in this tutorial, you need to go up here and change it until it's the same as what you see here. Okay, so I'm just going to place that. And then OK. So it's picked the same scale as before. Now I want to create my projected views. So there's my top view. There's my end view. And for this one, I don't want a pictorial view for this because I'm going to use that space up there for a detail view. So I'll just press escape. Before we create our detail view, you might not have this in yours, but I've got a little bit of extra detail in this end view that I don't want. As you can see on the top view here, I've got hidden detail where I can see the through mortises. And in this case, that actually is quite useful and gives me useful information without over cluttering the view. Whereas here, not only do I have the bottom edge of the hidden mortise here, but I can also see hidden view of the extent of the curves, which is not really relevant. So I'm just going to select that view, right click, edit, and I'm just going to change the style. Close. That's a little bit cleaner. Okay, now for my detail view, you can find that up here, or you've got the menu where you've got extra pieces in there. But I'm just going to select detail view. Then I can come down, I've got to select my base view and then the center of the view. So the center of the view, I'm actually going to make it to be the center of the radius here. So I just left click on that, and then it kind of gives me an extent of how big I want the view to be. So that's up to you to decide, but I just want to have some detail view of the end of one rail, including the mortise. So I'll select that. And then where am I going to put it? So I'm going to place it up here, but you'll see that the scale has come in at 1:4. I might want to make that a little bit bigger. I've made it 1:3, but it could even be as big as 1:2. So I'll make it a little bit bigger and then go OK. There's a tiny little bit more information I want to put in here because this situation, there's this radius here, and we want to see where the center point is of that radius because that's a place that we can get dimensions from. So if we go up into geometry, we'll just get a center mark then we can select that radius, and we can do the same down here as well. Now we can start dimensioning. And just a reminder that we want to add dimensions so that we understand how it can be constructed, but without adding redundant dimensions. So we don't want to be repeating dimensions. So D for dimension is our keyboard shortcut. And probably one of the most complicated areas is the actual location of this radius here. So let's start with that. Now you can see what I've done is I've clicked on the center point of the radius and this edge here. Now it can interpret that a range of different ways, but what I want for this particular dimension is I want to know how far in from the shoulder of the mortise and tenon joint the center is. So that's why I'm looking for this 25. Now, it's not snapping to a place that I'm happy with at the moment, but I can edit that later. So I'll just place it there. The other one that I want off that spot is I want to know how far down from the top edge it is as well. So there's my critical dimensions there. Now, as I mentioned, I can now press Escape and I can select this dimension. And I can actually now change it a little bit just to make it work a little bit better in that space. So that looks pretty good there. The other things that I need to know is I need to know what are the dimensions of this mortise and where exactly is it located. So D for dimension again, and I'll find that bottom edge there all the way out here, but then I just need to get that sort of vertical orientation, and that's what I want. 90 is the number I'm looking for. And then what's the dimension of the mortise itself? All right, I'm going to race ahead now and finish the dimensioning, which you can follow along. You can see I've zoomed into this part here just so I've got a really, really good view of what I'm doing here. Now you can see here, this is a fairly complicated area, but this is a good example of a stacked dimension where I've got the 15 is the distance from the bottom edge here up to the bottom of the tenon, and then 25 is the length of the tenon. Now, that 15, it's a little bit confusing there as to what exactly it's referring to. So again, this is one of these ones where it could be useful to modify it slightly. So that's a little bit clearer. The other thing too is you'll notice on these dimensions here that one of the annoying features of Fusion is it doesn't strictly adhere to AS 1100, where you should be able to read it from the bottom and from the right hand side. So for example, that dimension there is now readable from the left hand side, which is a breach of AS 1100. So I just can move that across until I get it to a point where it's reading from the correct side. I'll finish the dimensioning now. So you can see I've completed the drawing and added some extra detail, which is not strictly necessary. The other thing that I do want to draw your attention to, even though I did say before that we want to avoid redundant dimensions, in some cases I've broken that rule here. So for example, the tenon at the end of the rail, there's a fair bit of complicated geometry there. So you can see here with these dimensions, the 15, so the bottom of the tenon is 15 up from the bottom edge, and the tenon is 25 millimeters long. But I've also put some additional information here, which is pretty much the same, but I've just expressed it a little bit differently so that it might make it clearer, particularly because the context of this is with people who are not experienced at reading and interpreting working drawings. So I have actually broken that rule a little bit by supporting some of the dimensions with some additional text here. Same again with finding the center of the radius to create this curve. Even though there are dimensions here and you've got the radius over here, I have added some text information just to make it a little bit clearer.